Let's kickstart our sessions for the second edition of the Women Influencer Summit 2021, hosted by UBS Business Solutions India Private Limited. On Technology 4.0, starting with the discussion on leveraging the new normal and creating exponential value through adaptive and personalized technologies. Calling upon our moderator for the session, Ms. Piyali Chatterjee, Senior VP, CX Head, Hansa Research. Piyali is a seasoned CX domain expert with more than 17 years of experience in market research and customer engagement and experience consulting across sectors, notably BFSI, e-commerce, durables, telecom, auto, FMCG, telecom, manufacturing, just among others. Joining her, we have Ms. Sudha Bhamidipati, co-founder Worksogo. As a women co-founder of Worksogo, an award-winning AI company, her knowledge of CRM, sales improvement, and large-scale transformation serve her in good stead in managing Worksogo's 40+ major enterprise customers. Joining them, we have Dr. Sonal Sushil Modi, Vice President, Enterprise Technology Learning and Insights Team, MasterCard. Sonal has more than 22 years of industry experience with diversified spectrum of work portfolios from technology development and digital transformation implementation to building learning organizations. Joining them, we have Ms. Kakul Paul, Vice President, Analytics, Accenture Analytics. Kakul is a transformational leader with 16+ years of experience in providing consultative strategic guidance to clients through a data-driven approach and in setting up high-performing offshore analytics, COE, for delivering the same. Our next speaker is Ms. Rajshri Chawla, Director, IT SAP and Legacy Systems, Eaton Corporation. Rajshri is an established global IT industry leader with 21+ years of experience in managing diverse geographical teams focused on delivering high-quality results aligned to the business needs of the organization. Over to you, Piyali. Request you to unmute yourself, Piyali.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction, and good afternoon to all the lovely ladies. I'm really excited and honored to moderate this session today and looking forward to some enriching knowledge sharing in the next 45 minutes. So we will be having a discussion with the panelists, and then towards the end of the session, we will open it up for some audience questions, and then we will have a concluding speech post that. So just to set a context before we hear from our panelists speak, so today consumer behavior is changing on a dime in a new and frankly unpredictable ways. The new normal, especially the post-COVID world, has catapulted organizations to becoming virtual, digital-centric, and agile. And to do it all at all organizations to become virtual, digital, and agile, and to do it all at a lightning fast speed. This has been possible due to the increasing technology advancements powered by both established and emerging technologies. We are now in a human technology co-evolution stage where technologies like AI will be integrated in most parts of our lives, producing new efficiencies and enhancing human capabilities. Frankly speaking, today we have moved to an era of mass personalization, from mass personalization to individual personalization. So from our survey data that we see at Hansa Research, 3 out of 5 customers are actually okay to give an access to their personal data, provided they get personalized services. And there are a lot of digital powerful tools which are being used to make this happen, whether it's big data, artificial intelligence, chatbots, virtual call centers, and many more. The last year has seen us leverage various frontier technologies such as AI, IoT, big data, blockchain, 5G, 3D printing, robotics, drones, gene editing, and many more. So what is important to note that these are increasingly interrelated and they often expand each other's functionalities. Example, key applications of AI include personalization and chatbots. And we have seen the difference between companies who have invested in the digital versus who have not. So clearly, these technologies are what helps you as a business to become closer to the psychology of your consumer. So in today's session, we will highlight specifically on how each of these technologies are being applied to the highest degree to create exponential value, and also we'll talk about leading concerns resulting from digitization and automation. So given that context, Kakul, I would like to start with you. And given that personalization has become so impactful and powerful, as a matter of fact, it is one of the key differentiators for companies today. And reacting and adapting is crucial. So the key is to infer behavior from patterns in the data and make educated guesses through data and machine learning. So what I would like to know from you is how is personalization being used to the highest degree with the usage of newer technology? If you can throw some light on that.
Sure. Thanks, for that context as well. Very helpful. I think I'll not just talk about how personalization is helping. I think something that is very close to a lot of people, right? And it's touching us in various ways, but also in terms of what lies ahead and what's basically the next in horizon as we talk about the growth of personalization. We are receiving text messages, WhatsApp messages, emails from various places, be it credit card and other services that kind of support us in terms of getting to us the best offers available, right? What I see as the next phase of personalization, one is being able to input not just a point data about a customer, but more journey-based personalization, right? So if you are going to reach out to me maybe after 15 days or 30 days, there is incremental data that you have got, which is going to add in terms of viewing me as a customer much better and being able to interact with me. I think we are kind of getting there, but we still have a long journey. And obviously that means a lot in terms of technology, backend, the infra to kind of support that massive data, being able to kind of, in a way, real time, even if it's not like every second, every minute, be able to process and be able to kind of communicate with me a lot better. And that's where you're able to empathize me. You know what happened with me last week, or maybe even as late as yesterday, what I'm going through, right? That's one. The second is in terms of driving personalized customer support, right? I personally feel that's a big gap. While I think all the personalization right now in the industry is focused on customer acquisition, what we are kind of missing out is the support part, retaining customers. Where are we talking about the leaky bucket, right? A lot of companies have moved completely from voice support to text and chat AI support models, right? We do not even have a call center to call them back and talk actually to a human, talk about, what are our issues. So I think that while this has changed, and yes, that's good because, you're kind of optimizing it, the personalization aspect on the support aspect, right, is still missing, right? Am I able to kind of communicate, whether it is chatbot or whatever other agents that I have, be able to communicate very well in terms of what the customer's issues are. If I'm having issues with a grocery pickup or drop, right? Instead of starting from scratch and asking what was your last order, what was the issue that you're facing, can I customize? Can I learn a little bit about this customer a little better and be able to predict what possibly is the problem that they're coming back to me with, right? So that I believe is the second area that we have as a big area to kind of focus on, because eventually all companies will be moving. They would have addressed their customer acquisition strategy, the personalization efforts over there, and then it'll be about fixing the customers that you have and keeping them alive. The third aspect is about the whole bit where your data privacy, encroaching somebody's privacy comes into play, which is subtle versus overt personalization, right? There are rule books, playbooks being written in terms of coaching agents, right? Coaching automated chatbots in terms of identifying where you stop and what kind of conversations that you have with the agents. That's the third aspect. The fourth one, and I think that's where the massive scope is about moving personalization from the current digital scope. I think most of our personalization right now is limited on the digital or the the online world side of it. There is scope in the offline personalization world as well. So I think there is clearly scope over there. That's the fourth element. And then of course the last part is in terms of creatively reaching out, whether it is a chatbot, it's the AI engine, it is a creative pamphlet, template, WhatsApp, text message, an email that goes out. A lot of creativity around it, so as to kind of catch my attention and be able to communicate to me. So I think those are 4 or 5 things, according to me, which are going to define the next stage of personalization. We're already there, I would say, in the initial 10% phase, and being able to get a lot of data back from customers. It's about leveraging and taking it to the next level.
Very relevant points and very interesting too. So as you rightly said that, personalization, if not placed during the right customer journey, it may fail to add value to your customers. And of course, using the right channel and ensuring that it's creative enough for it to register is equally important. Very valid. I'd like to move to Sonal. And given your experience with MasterCard and given the kind of exposure that you have to data, I would like to hear your views on personalization too, and how it is being handled using different technology internally.
Yeah, thank you, Piali, for for asking that question, and I would like to definitely build on what Kapil just mentioned. Personalization actually keeps a very sharp laser focus on customer experience and engagement, as she rightly mentioned, right? And customer interaction is ever evolved. Gone are the days when we actually want to run behind the customer, but we want to ensure that we retain them, and we retain them in the best of interest, giving them a great experience. Technologies such as the AI, the big data, the bots, deliver a very tailored and optimal customer experience at scale in real time today. And that's an advantage that they clearly bring in. They can deliver advanced levels of service over the conventional customer service at a fraction of cost. So a couple of things that they bring as merit. And it has the power to speed up issue resolutions for the customers, improving the overall service satisfaction levels. If you look at how the statistics are playing around, look at the kind of genre of people that are looking forward for personalization. It has become the new norm. 72% of the millennials actually engage with virtual assistants to get response to their queries. 60 to 80% of outsourced call centers powered by humans is kind of replaced, and it is actually showing cost saving. Classic examples of personalization used today are in the scheme of things of learning, upskilling. If somebody really wants to learn something, if somebody wants to upskill themselves through a very designed kind of learning paths, how does the AI help you to navigate through that kind of personalization is an example that we see, which is the thing that is happening in the industry today. The best part is, as we are moving in this particular innovative areas of leveraging tools like AI, bots, and big data, the latest in the field is AI drive-through that comes at fast food joints going for personalization. And picking up on the point that Kapil just mentioned, it's not only about digital platforms, but offline also. How do fast food joints have started looking into this kind of technology innovation, wherein looking at the license plates of the customer or the number of visits or some data that is being churned out through these powerful technologies will help them to personalize the orders that are placed. So that's something which is evolving, and there are multiple things that are happening. Clearly, there are benefits to this area. Of course, there are disadvantages, as any technology brings in. The creep factor, which is unwarranted intrusion, is a challenge, needs to be addressed appropriately through cybersecurity and rest of the things. Ransom attacks, threats continue to happen, and there is a lot of work that is happening. But it is the way forward, and there is a lot of advancement.
Thank you, Sonal. I'll just move to Rajeshri. I'll just come to you. And today we see that there are a lot of new technologies which are being leveraged in various sectors, like be it in healthcare, for example, AI-enabled frontier technologies are being used to save lives, diagnosis diseases, extend life expectancy, and so on. Similarly, in education, virtual learning environments, distance learning, technologies being used. So similarly, we'd like to hear from you, like how are new technologies transforming the durable and resilient assets to more useful resources?
Sure, Piali, thank you for that question. And as I talk about new technologies, let me give a very quick background about where I come from. I work for a company called Eaton Corporation. It's primarily a manufacturing company that specializes in power management technologies and services. So the reason I mentioned that is because we're a large global company, 95,000 employees across the globe, a lot of manufacturing facilities, internal functions, etc. So the extent of this kind of structure within the company, when we are trying to adopt new technologies, what is our thought process, right? Because there's, as we've been hearing for the past 15 minutes, there's a lot of new technologies out there in the market. Technologies change constantly. We've seen the advent of SMAC in the early 2011. But how does one really adopt a digital journey, a digital transformation that makes sense for the organization? And I think that comes from defining, first of all, a larger strategy for your digital transformation. What is relevant to our organization? Looking at all of the technologies that are out there and doing the technology surveillance, right? What is out there that's relevant to our company that's going to be beneficial to us? So Eaton per se, I can tell you that we embarked on a digital transformation journey a couple of years back. And we started top down by defining an overall strategy, overall approach that covered a wide range of stakeholders, right? We are finally answerable to our shareholders, our customers, our employees. And how do we do this? Digitally, a lot of these technologies that we're talking about finally achieve an objective. And the objective that we are trying to achieve here is, how do we find new sources of revenues using data and its insights? How do we do business with our customers in a completely digital manner, digital e-commerce, and improving the productivity of our employees, right? At the end of the day, that is equally important, improving the operational efficiencies with the growing pressures that we have on revenues and doing more with same or doing more with less. So a few of the things that we have incorporated in terms of technologies, and I'll probably start with data, right? Data is a huge, powerful asset today. We've seen that with all of the wars that are going on with the tech giants. Now, if we use data ethically, if you use data in the right manner, being compliant with norms such as the GDPR, DFARS, so on and so forth, you can use data to unlock new sources of revenue, right? So Eaton has something called as Brightlayer. That's our technology. It's core heart of our technology, where all of our products out there in the market have sensing capabilities. These products gather data from the customer, from the market, feed it into Brightlayer, where the data science and analytics work on them. And those analytics or insights can be provided as a service, or we can provide outcome as a service. For example, there's an energy utility facility or a data center. The outcome could be that the manager or the person responsible for that business wants you to increase their uptime or reduce their costs, energy costs, and the interconnected devices. So now I'm connecting technologies, the IoT, IoB, Internet of Behaviors, as well as data science and analytics, all put together make sense to give a meaningful solution to your customers. So that's on the data science side, and data science can do much more than that. Predictive analytics, I think you had mentioned it as one of the technologies where you can improve your sales, you can understand your customer better and present better products to them, improve your supply chain as well. I would then move to automation specifically, and now what we call as hyper-automation. Automation has been around for the past few years. Everybody has recognized that, hey, we're doing so many things manually. So much of it is repetitive in nature. It's rule-based. It does not need human intelligence to carry it out. Can we automate it and redirect the human intelligence to doing higher order work? And that's where technologies like RPA, robotics process automation, came in. That's really at the lowest rung. And I think people are aware of task-based automation in the quality assurance space, but RPA is moving it a lot higher and doing the business process automation. So where Eaton has deployed it very successfully is in our within our internal functions such as finance, supply chain management, HR, tax, so on and so forth. And again, I don't think these tools are only to improve the productivity. There are other benefits that one can avail, such as, if you have regulatory compliance requirements that needs to be done in a certain time, maybe an automated process helps you to do it faster than what people could do, or a 24/7 operation, or more accuracy in your quality output, so on and so forth. But we haven't stopped there. There's cognitive automation, AI, ML that's coming in. And then, of course, virtual agents. We talk to so many of our customers, and internally as well. I think Kapil was talking about support, right? Overall, internally as well, the big organization we have. So a lot of support personnel who work on answering calls. So having chatbots, or what we also call as virtual agents, is going to shift a lot of that work left and improve customer satisfaction, because they are getting the answers quickly than a person waiting for a person to answer them. So yes, chatbot implementation is another huge initiative that's happening within the organization. But also being a manufacturing organization and being in field service, you guys would have heard of augmented reality and virtual reality. We are deploying these technologies to be able to remotely do field service. A person doesn't really have to visit you to diagnose a problem. He can actually, through a virtual reality lens that he or she is wearing, you can actually look at something as if you're looking at it in reality and solve the problem, having better customer satisfaction. I'll just mention a couple of last points here. Industry 4.0 is another revolution that we know is the fourth revolution in the overall manufacturing industry. That's something also where Eaton has invested a lot in digitalizing our manufacturing processes or the factory processes. So yeah, these are a few of the new technologies and things that we are doing in our digital space. You're on mute, Piali.
Very interesting, and because at the end of it, it is the final goal is to ensure how you satisfy your customers, and how technology is being used to simplify their lives and enabling companies to make them more satisfied I think is of paramount importance today. Thanks for sharing, Rajeshri, the examples. So moving on to Sudha. So Sudha, we would like to hear from you too about some of the newer technologies which are being used to kind of come up with more meaningful solutions to customers. If you can share something around that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Piali. Hi, ladies. Wonderful to hear all of you. I think we moved from Kapil, who spoke about how do we use personalization and customers, to Sonal, who spoke about predicting when you come into a drive-in, how can we do? And Rajeshri has now spoken about how does it work in corporation, and how do we improve productivity of employees, reduce turnaround time of a process. I think different applications to technology is very exciting. At WorkZogo, we are an AI company. I'm a co-founder of WorkZogo. We focus on improving sales productivity. So our sharp focus is the sales team productivity, and our AI engine personalizes nudges to each salesperson in the hierarchy. So they are autonomous, which means the control stays with the individual. We are not trying to say, let's take away control and tell them what to do. The idea is to say, can we offer them suggestions in the way it's most likely to be consumed by them? So we're trying to make, and we're seeing between 15 to 25% productivity improvement in sales teams. Most of our clients are large enterprises because technology, like you said, Sonal and Kapil, is how can we personalize at scale? And that's what our AI engine helps us to do. It's a completely different use case, targeted at employees, personalizing for employees, nudging employees. So we brought behavior science into it. In fact, to further improve our AI engine, which nudges sales team, we are doing a number of experiments with a professor from Stanford called Professor Shuchi, who focuses on how do employees respond to different types of nudges. And the idea is, can we feed back the experiments, learnings into our engine and improve the nudges? We're seeing that human beings are actually very open to receiving nudges. We have almost 80,000 users. All of the salespeople we meet say, yeah, it's very good when it gives me suggestions on what I should do today to improve my performance. That's subtle difference between bullying or manipulating and suggesting so that the individual feels control is still with them. And I think we all need to walk that fine line. And all of y'all spoke about it. How do we use technology without trying to manipulate or make it, negative in the way we do? We firmly believe technology is for good and must be used for good. And the lines that we draw, even though there are GDPR and PII rules are there, I think companies should proactively take that position and say, let's not go on the side of manipulation. Let's walk on the side of bringing autonomy to people and helping them make choice. That's what we do. We are delighted to share anything about our company. And I think your views, Kapil, Sonal, and Rajeshri, are fantastic to hear, because it's lovely to see different perspectives on an AI technology or on analytics. I mean, how many different ways we can use it and make companies perform better. Thank you, Piali, for your question. I hope a little bit of perspective came from our side.
Thank you, Sudha. Thanks for sharing the kind of work that you do. Very interesting indeed. So I'd like to come back to you, Kapil. So, today, we see that the customers are actually getting very, very demanding. They demand a real-time resolution for everything. And that's the reason why, most of the companies are adopting digital to kind of see how they can be more agile in their business. So my question to you here is that, has real-time approach become a necessity today? Like, how are real-time technologies aiding a 24/7 performance? Can you just share your views around that?
Thanks. I think the value of real-time is back into focus with the way COVID is impacting us since last year, and how people are coming together, how a lot of information is basically flowing back to people real time, whether it's about availability of medicines, vaccination, hospital beds, and whatever current crisis India is going through, right? And this is a more human place where, it is impacting us, and we see that real time is required, it is needed, it is the way of the future. But there are various other aspects in industries also which benefited. It might not affect us in a very human way, but it's definitely needed as, to increase productivity, efficiency, right? In terms of, seeing it as the future, yes, and what needs to kind of be brought in place, or, where the industry is eventually trending, some of this is already in play. One is the whole bit about being able to kind of put this together at speed, at scale. And hence, DevOps is kind of moving in the direction of literally low code, no code, right? Those kind of applications where, you kind of set it up and be able to bring it to market like literally tomorrow, right? We've had incidents where people have kind of brought these automated chatbots, to facilitate people's questions around healthcare and COVID in literally 24, 48 hours time frame, right? And not only is it about bringing to speed and scale, but also about what kind of resources are required to develop it. We know that talent is scarce. We know that as these things are going to scale up, we are going to land up even in more, talent crunch sort of a situation. So we need these applications which are able to leverage capability which does not require niche talent, and people can work on it and also be able to support it long term, right? So that kind of DevOps layer is required. That's one. Second is managing this large scale computing data. I think this everybody has been talking about. We talk about the 4Vs. So this is not new. And, IDC is kind of estimating that by 2025, an individual will be like literally tapping into multiple devices 4,800 times a day. So imagine the kind of data that is going to get collected and it's going to hit. So obviously that infrastructure to manage that large scale data is the second, right, to kind of support our real time infrastructure. The third, which obviously comes with it, with this huge amount of quantum data that we talk about, right? What is the quantum cryptography that is going to run in the background of this, right? Because data privacy is obviously going to become even more important, relevant, so much of data going from our side and probably residing in servers which is out of control. And related to it, which is the fourth point, is the edge computing, right? I think it's literally in nascent stages, but I know this is the future. Everybody is talking about it. People are investing huge amount of money to kind of get there, because this is where the latency is going to literally get minimized to milliseconds, right? This is where you will not need massive power, right, to kind of be compute. This is where data is not going to leave your system, your devices, and hence privacy, security will become, it will still remain a concern, right? But it is not, it doesn't need to travel from my laptop, from my mobile back to a data center somewhere in Poland, wherever, right? And then again, come back in terms of what the response should be, right? So I think that's where the whole play of edge computing is kind of going to drive real time. We're already seeing a lot of industries testing it out, right? And I think hopefully in the next 3-4 years, we will see a bigger play of edge computing coming in and hitting us in various other industries as well. So these are the different 3 or 4 things that I feel, it's going to define the technology play for the real-time 24/7 performance.
Okay, great. So my next question is related to this, and I'll like to come to. So I like to come to Sonal. Back to Sonal. So Sonal, yes, we've been hearing from Kapil about these newer technologies, and there are a lot of other wizards of technology like 5G network, drones, autonomous driving, driving, 3D printing, many such technologies which are currently being effectively adopted globally. And now it has also been adopted in India in its own pace. So we would like to hear from you in terms of what is the current scenario, how soon you think it should take over, what is the kind of application that's happening here, and what would be what is the kind of time frame we should look at.
Sure. Thank you, Piali, for asking that question. As we talk about 5G networks, drones, or 3D printing as technologies, it's like living on the edge. All of these technologies are at the helm of innovation. They are evolving. Many of them are at infancy stage and they claim to be at the next level. However, it will take some time in order to advance in such kind of areas. Given the fact that, let me talk about 5G a little bit, because there is a lot of work that we do at MasterCard. We are exploring a lot of POCs and looking at how in payments industry this can be made as a viable technology option. But at the same time, it is important for us to understand that this, when we talk about 5G technology, it will definitely enable unprecedented kind of levels of connectivity, which will help us to upgrade super fast broadband, ultra reliable, low latency kind of communications, high reliability kind of availability, effective and efficient energy usage. So there are so many case studies that we can actually talk about when it comes to 5G, but they are all evolving and it needs a lot of ecosystem to be strengthened. One, it's a very, very costlier affair. So definitely it's going to take some time for us to reach that kind of level of implementations. But there are a lot of POCs that are happening in this space. The transition to 5G networks can only be achieved when all stakeholders, it's like the citizens, the private sector, and the government collaborate effectively in order to address all the kind of ecosystem related questions will be addressed. They're definitely fast, intelligent kind of internet connectivity enabled 5G application areas that has been already predicted. And clearly, when you look at the research that is happening in this innovative kind of technology, it clearly states that 5G definitely will be next thing that will be upcoming. Roughly around $3.6 trillion in economic output is something which is expected to come out from 5G network. So we can only say that the global 5G value chain alone itself is going to be so exhaustive. It definitely is going to make a lot of sense. But where are we today? We are at the POC stage. We are looking at what are the present opportunities for companies. How do we actually move in that space? What kind of smaller acts that can we do, especially in the fintech industry? How can we leverage this 5G technology to take advantage of all the kind of positives that it brings? We are at that stage where we know about the technology, but we are not into the real-time implementation at this point in time. So there is a lot of exploration that is going. Same goes with drones. If you look at drones as an industry, it has a potential of providing an economic boost along with a lot of other kind of global investments. You already see that drones have been tried and tested in agri-related kind of stuff to understand the moisture of the land, in some kind of cases to see whether there are mines really existing, in terms of organ donations where organs actually can be taken from one place to another in a very quick pattern. So there are a lot of case studies that have been tried and tested. But in order to kind of see the success of drones in our country, probably a symbiotic integration of law, tax, civil liabilities, and a lot of other things apart from the technology piece has to shape out rightly. And that will take some time. But we are on that particular pathway where we are exploring a lot of POCs, case studies. They are working fine. Exhaustive means of trying and testing this kind of techniques. That is a stage where we are. It will definitely contribute to industrial advances for sure in multiple ways, enabling faster and effective, inspections through predictive intelligence that we're talking about. It will actually improve the workplace and worker safety. It will look at operational effectiveness. It will look at how quickly things can be done at that lightning speed. There are a lot of advantages that we are seeing, but it is still to evolve. It will take some time. It's like a question asked, when will the pandemic get over? You don't have an answer, right? And it's the same when it goes to such kind of technologies. We're definitely evolving. It will take some more time. In the next 5 years, we will see the next phase of advancements for sure.
Absolutely. I think that day I was very impressed with some of the snippets I was when I was going through the newspaper, like how technology is being used during COVID-19 and how, to ensure whether the lockdown has been properly enforced. There were drones for surveillance through the streets, and even spray disinfectants. The drones were used to spray disinfectants in the remote places and carry out deliveries of medicines. Very impressive. I think these are very interesting examples of how technology is kind of being used in real life examples through real life. Fair enough. Okay, so Rajeshwari, now next I'll come to you to get some understanding on. So we know that technology is one of the fastest changing industry, and with all these regulatory sandbox and where multiple technologies are being tested, tried, and experimented. So dealing and going together with this continuous cycle of learning, experiencing, changing, and implementing. What do you see? How is this industry completely changing?
So I think there's everything that's happening out there today, depending on which industry you are in, whether it's B2C, B2B, research industry, and we've heard today from the other panelists as well, such interesting views on what is the application of your industry. So I think as we just talked, there's a lot of advent of digital technologies for all sorts of organizations. So I do not think that any of our organizations can now afford not to be digital. And the organizations that sort of did not stay in that space or did not start that journey a few years back, they were forced to do that because of the pandemic. Take, for example, remote working. I think many of us were practicing remote working in the past, but not at the scale that it was forced on us by the pandemic, where all of us are working remote and for a prolonged period of time, forcing the disruptive change of using collaborative technologies to the kind of extent that we are using today. So digital, of course, I think everybody is adopting, in various ways that are applicable to them. But then there are also manufacturing companies like us. We carry a lot of technical debt, right? We acquire companies that are running legacy ERP systems. We probably have not spoken of that kind of software today, but they exist. I mean, I'm responsible globally for the implementation of SAP, which is our strategic ERP, and other legacy ERP systems, which will eventually move to SAP. So there is a lot of technical debt, not just in ERPs, but in other spaces that we have. And our challenge is to continuously, keep optimizing our spend on the legacy systems and how to convert them how to modernize them into the strategic newer platforms, whereas we continue our journey into the digital space, how to embrace the new technologies, how to bring them in, what sort of processes do we need to sort of get these technologies into our space and then implement them in a way that makes sense. For example, I have seen certain RPA implementations where you hurry into it because it's very quick. You install the tool, you take a process, you automate it, and it works. But is that something that you want to do? Is that strategic in nature? For example, there is an end-to-end process, but you just took part of it and automated it. So you're really not giving the benefits to the organization. Had you thought more strategically, connected one function to another, and taken an end-to-end process and automated it? So I think as we adopt new technologies, we also have to adopt the right approach of what makes sense to us, do the opportunity mapping, and implement them only in the right places. Because a technology that is not implemented correctly can very quickly become obsolete for the organization.
True, absolutely.
And when we talk about sales as well, I think Kakul was talking about it earlier. Today, we do not have the luxury of meeting people face to face, especially the sales force that was very used to doing this, right? So now we are forced to do business with our customers. B2C already, there was a lot of digitization there, but B2B, I think companies like us, we were going digital, and I think that it's a good thing that we had a bit of an advantage. But now again, it's forced on us to go more digital. How do you give a seamless experience to your customer in doing business with you? When they come to your portal looking for something, how do you service them, guide them to the right technologies? And sometimes customers don't know what they're looking for, right? How do you use tools like Eloqua? How do you use tools that are customer facing to be able to gauge what the customer is looking for, put together the right solution, follow it up, make sure the sale is closed, and also make sure that the after service, which is, in aerospace that we operate in, the after service market is bigger than the actual initial sales, because you don't make a plane every day, right? So when you're servicing a plane, the after market is much more important than the initial sales as well. So I think given the context of these kind of things, having a digital customer experience for your customer and then using the analytics out of that to create repeat business, I think these are the things how we should meaningfully deploy all of these digital technologies that we are talking about.
Okay, thank you. Sudha, can you just, just tell us a little bit about, given that this is one of the fastest changing industry, technology, which is the fastest changing industry today, can you just tell us or share some views on what are the possible challenges that we are seeing in the implementation and the rapid changing that's happening in the sector?
So I agree with Rajeshri when she says that there are legacy systems, and companies with legacy systems need to find a way to leapfrog into the digital world, because you cannot say, I'm going to wait till this company comes up with that solution. And today, there are companies, for instance, companies like ours, that is taken a view that says we don't need to tightly integrate with digital, with legacy systems. Let's allow clients to leapfrog. And over the last 4 years, we found large enterprises are willing to work with new age companies, companies that are looking at different areas like behavior science, like VR, and implementing, and they all start with a pilot because everyone wants to know it works. And then they scale up. That's been a very successful model, and we find large enterprises in India and internationally are willing to try out. The mindset has changed dramatically from what it used to be 10 years back when I was in IBM and PwC, where we said, oh, we'll go only with known names. We will go with SAP, and we will go with big companies, Oracle. But now companies are saying, there's so much happening there. Can I see something that really radically changes the pain areas for me? And I have to say, hats off to all the large enterprises. They are really leapfrogging. And like you said, Rajeshri, can't afford not to anymore. I think all of you all have given such wonderful views on technology. I have learned so much. Thank you so much for it. Thank you, Piali, for moderating it so well.
Thank you, Sudha. I think I completely agree, and it has been an equally learning session for me to know more about what other technologies that's happening in the industry today. But given the time, I'll probably request if there are any questions from the audience, then we will take that. Otherwise, we will probably have some concluding comments from any questions from the audience.
As we're short on time, I would request you to kindly wrap up with your ending thoughts.
Yes. Okay, sure. So I think we had some very, very interesting views from all of you, right from, so clearly, you know, is technology not being embedded at the right part of the journey? You know, we don't, you know, we may not see the right value out of it. We learned about how a well implementation of the technology can lead to customer satisfaction and delight. What are the different new technologies that's coming up and how it is being, you know, kind of put in place to ensure that it is more fruitful and meaningful to the customers today. We also heard from some of the challenges which are, you know, kind of this industry is being seen. And any other concluding comments which any one of you wants to add, feel free to add. In the last one, we have another minute to go. So any concluding comments that any one of you would like to add? Fair enough. Thank you so much. Thank you. It was lovely interacting with all of you. It was indeed a learning experience. And thank you for the time and the wonderful comments that I heard from all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Piali. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you, Piali, Rajeshri, Kakul, Sonal, and Sudha. That was really, really insightful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Stay safe.